Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
You probably know the feeling. Sweaty, fast breathing, quick heart rate. That's a cortisol spike. It feels awful, and its imbalance is the cause of your anxiety. Rebalance Health's 3-part anxiety system helps address it at the root. Rebalance Health lozenges are natural and designed for optimal absorption, providing 24-hour relief. Live life fully without feeling like you're fighting for it. Get 50% off your first month with code CALM23 at rebalancehealth.com.
In times of old, in times of new, there's a God to follow to make it true. It's the Pop Culture Field Manual. Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing episode of the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast. It's great to be back with you folks. We hope you had a wonderful week. I know I did. Doesn't matter when this episode is airing. I'm having a great week because I'm high on life. I'm Israel Wright. It's good to be back with you. Ladies and gentlemen, with me as always,
Cameron Fath. Wow, Izzy, I'm so glad you're just riding super high. Don't get addicted to life, man. It's scary.
You're right. I mean, yeah, you can never have enough, and then you can get too high on life.
Too high on life, and then you find yourself on Skid Row begging for nickels. But all that aside, speaking of Skid Row, what a harsh environment to live in.
Yeah, there are a lot of harsh environments out there that you wouldn't want to be caught in.
Yeah, and funny, that we talk about harsh environments. Say it again, stomps on floor for harsh environments. That is exactly the topic of today's episode, and this one is appropriately called "This Place Sucks," and it is all about just pop culture and pieces of pop culture that take place in numerous different environments that the military operate in. Mm-hmm. So, Izzy, based on your experiences, where have you been, man? I mean, obviously, I can guess the deserts of Iraq, but in training, like where did you find yourself operating in?
In training, we did in our train up for our deployment to Iraq, we went out to Fort Irwin. Out at NTC, the National Training Center, which is kind of one of the main places that units go to get ready to deploy. I mean, this one in particular obviously was very famous or very well used, you could say, because Iraq and Afghanistan, that's the name of the game, and it's the hot desert. It's very similar, folks. If you've been out to the Mojave Desert, you have a good idea of what most of Iraq is like. Northern Iraq starts getting a little hilly and a little mountainous, but not much. It just gets a little higher elevation. But I've been there, and I did the Q course training out at Camp McCall, which is north and South Carolina, a little bit, kind of around that area where Fort Bragg is. I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Pacific Northwest, beautiful. I guess you could call that the mountains. I never did any ocean training, any water training, or anything like that. Never did any Arctic training. Never really came up. I suppose if I would have joined 10th group, they're a mountain, they are, they have, no, I'm thinking of a mountain team, which anybody can have, but they do mountain training, I think, there specifically in Colorado, if you're on a mountain team. So, but yeah, my training, I think at the time, the name of the game was Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we were all very focused on that kind of training. I suppose if we ever get into, get into a fight with Canada, we'll have to do a lot more Arctic training. But
yeah, sure.
I'm kind of glad that I never did any maritime training because I've got a thing with the water, man. I kind of have.
You don't like the water?
Not a big. I saw way too many sea monster movies like Jaws,
shark movies,
and Leviathan and Piranha. All these like deep sea movies where it's just, I don't like the fact that I look out into the ocean and I can't see to the bottom. Like, I don't know what's under there. I don't know what's going to come up and grab me. What tentacles.
You have a fear of the unknown,
Yes.
which is exactly why I joined the Army and not the Navy. I'm the same way, man. I freaking hate the water. I don't like the fact that, like, we don't have webs on our fingers or toes. We can't breathe in the water. So why the hell are people like so jazzed about it? I'm not a big ocean fan, man.
Yeah.
The ocean makes everything worse. When you're wet, you're cold. When you're also wet, you get everything sticks to you like the sand. It's uncomfortable. It just is the worst place. This place sucks. Yeah, that place sucks.
Cold,
but
it's coarse,
it's just
itchy, and it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere. But didn't you go to like Cambodia or something crazy?
Yeah, I got to go to Cambodia for a couple weeks. It was more like it was a shorter deployment. Where the purpose was to do relationship building with the Cambodian, I think it was police force actually that we trained. We would do workshops with them and go out on the town at night. It was a lot of fun, but that was that would be more urban environment. The stuff that we did, we didn't actually go out and do like jungle training. We did more firearms and urban tactics training.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. What about
for
you?
me, I think. For me, it was obviously the desert because we were focused on Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. So I also went to NTC, did a lot of training. I was also stationed at Fort Lewis, so like forest, a lot of, rainy forest and sort of mountainous environments I'm very used to. Korea is extremely mountainous. I had no idea. It's mountainous and it's cold as shit during the winter.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of snowfall, so I didn't consider it like Arctic training, but man, it was like in the negatives for Fahrenheit. Like one day it was -2, but it would like be around 10 degrees most of the days and just mountainous environments. So that was, I consider that a little mountainous, but then also in Ranger School mountain phase, Dahlonega, Georgia. Damn, I didn't know there was mountains in Georgia, but there's mountains in Dahlonega. Big mountains, but also let's see, and then in Ranger School also operating in swamplands like the marshes. That was the final phase. But I've actually done a lot of different. I never did jungle warfare in the military. I never did Arctic warfare, and it's funny because once I left, my company actually went to jungle warfare school in Hawaii. 3 days after I got out of the Army. So I missed getting jungle qualified just because I wanted to be switch over to the Guard and be a civilian. I quit, but as they like to say. So I missed out on jungle training, and then like 2 years later when, Ukraine was starting to kick off, they all went to Arctic warfare school in Alaska and did training there, getting, just in case they needed to be mobilized for Ukraine in the winter. So I missed out on that. So I didn't get to do Arctic or jungle, but mountains, very familiar with the mountains, forest, very familiar with the forest, and even more familiar with the desert. But yeah, that's kind of my military experience. But, as a civilian, I've done more water stuff like diving. And then, I'm working on a project that fortunately I get to go to different environments for, which has been cool. So I got to go to the jungle, done some urban stuff, and just basically all the environments that I didn't get to do in the military, I'm getting to do on this project, which is a secret. But I'm excited for it to come out. If you guys are listening, if you're part of the Patreon, you've probably heard me talk about it a little bit, but looking forward to that coming out so you guys can see it. But yeah, I mean, the whole point is, each environment has cons to it, and you need to prepare. There's no like one key, there's no one size fits all solution for each different environment. Each different environment demands different levels of preparation and different levels of training. So the purpose of this episode, I think we're going to go through each different environment and talk about some pieces of pop culture that really highlight them. And I'm super excited because, you have the desert, you have the jungle, you have the Arctic, you have the mountains, you have urban environments, maritime, and space, because we have a space force now.
Got to get ready to fight those wars.
So we have to get ready to fight. Space Rangers are on the way for sure. But
What do you want to jump into first, man?
I was going to ask you really quick. I mean, you've done all these environments. Do you have a favorite one? And do you have an absolute one that you despise with all your heart?
Favorite and least favorite. You know, Amanda, to be honest, I grew up in the high desert of Southern California, Mojave Desert, kind of north of Los Angeles area. I like it, man. There's something about the desert. Maybe it's because I like the fantasy and sci-fi genres. That's always like, I've always associated that environment with adventure, you know, like the great unknown, the vast stretches of desert. It seems lifeless, but there's always more to it. And I spent a lot of time as a child just walking around, walking the earth, walking through the desert.
Just a wanderer.
I would much rather be hot than cold. If I have to be out in a harsh environment, I can handle being hot. I don't like being cold at all. So that's my preference there. In terms of least favorite, man, I feel like I don't like the jungle, man. I think it's beautiful to look at. I wouldn't mind walking through like on a nature hike or something. I'd love to go to Machu Picchu someday, but so it's hot and humid, which is like an incubator for disease, you know? And not only that, but like jungles, man, there's all sorts of poisonous spiders. You got poisonous frogs, poisonous snakes, you got poisonous trees.
Everything can hurt you.
Everything's poisonous out there. You know?
Everything can hurt you in the jungle. That's what I've learned. Yeah. It's like the plants can hurt you. The people can hurt you. The animals can hurt you. Like everything can hurt you in the jungle. And there is no being comfortable because it's just so miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
It's either hot and humid and you're wet, or it's raining and pissing on you and you're wet. Like there is no just being okay in the jungle.
What about you, man?
For me, my favorite are the mountains.
Okay.
For some reason, you know, I have like this fascination with, you know, just alpine environments. Like not only are they beautiful, but they separate the men from the boys. Because like to operate effectively in the mountains, you need to be super tough. You need to be able to be resilient to the, you know, the weather because it gets so cold. And like you said, you'd rather be hot than cold. See, I'd rather be cold than hot because in my eyes, you can always put on another layer, but I can only get so naked, you know? So, so I like the cold more than the heat. But the desert, to me, the desert is the easiest in all the environments to work in because, you know, most of the time when you're working in the desert, you have vehicles with you and you live out of your vehicles and you can, you know, bring heavy guns with you. You can bring heavy comms equipment. So to me, it's the easiest one, unless like a vehicle breaks down, but then you always have another vehicle and you always have a plan and, you know, tools to fix the problem. But in the mountains, it's like you bring everything that you need on your back. And it's tough and it's hard. And it's, for some reason, it's the most rewarding environment to me. So I like the mountains. And my least favorite environment, probably the jungle. And the jungle is, it's not cool, man. That place sucks. Yeah. Oh, and the swamp. The jungle and the swamp sometimes go hand in hand. It's just like, but in the jungle, you can find like, you know, you can find some dry ground to like set up camp and you can set up a hammock and stuff. But in the swamp, man, there is nothing.
Yeah.
It is literally just all water. You're wet all the time.
Moisture, as I like to say.
Yeah, there's so many deadly animals. Basically everything with the jungle is in the swamp, but then you're also in a swamp and it smells like shit because of all the still water. And it's just not a cool place. Like swamp phase in Ranger School was miserable. Even though I thought mountain phase was more difficult, I was more miserable in the swamps. Especially at nighttime, because that's the scariest shit. Like when you're standing there waist deep in water and there's just trees all around you and you're in the middle of the Florida swamp and like you're just standing there because we're trying to set up a rope bridge crossing of like a canal and like you have to wait for it to get set up and like make sure it's working. So if you're not that guy or you're not pulling security, you're just waiting there in the water. And like I remember it's pitch dark and like we're in nods and everyone is tired and hungry and has heavy ass rucksacks on and you're just sitting there in the water and you'll just hear this splash next to you like something's moving really quickly and you can't see anything and you're just thinking, oh my God, please don't be something that can literally end my life because there's snakes and there's alligators and there's spiders and you're just like, just set up this rope already. I'm trying to, let's move, man. This is scary. So the swamp and the jungle are no-goes for me. But with that, I think that's appropriate time to transition. Speaking of the easy, we say it's easy, but nothing's ever easy, especially in the military. But let's talk about the desert, man. What are some of your favorite pieces of military movies or close to that happen in the desert environment?
Right. There's one that's near and dear to my heart, and it's actually a game. It's Fallout New Vegas. I played this on stream for a good while. We used to call it Fallout Fridays. And man, it's just such a well done game, but it's personal to me because it takes place in the wider Mojave Desert. Basically, what they do in a lot of video games is a lot of open world games is they will basically have every environment within the broader world of the game. So the further north you go, it'll be wintry, and then the further south it'll be like jungles, and then there'll be a desert section and a woodland section.
Sounds like the world.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Basically they try to encapsulate the world within the boundaries of the video game. They do this in Breath of the Wild and sometimes the Far Cry games and the Horizon series as well. But Fallout New Vegas is awesome. I love post-apocalyptic games. There's something, I'm trying to think about what it is about post-apocalyptic video games in particular, or those stories. It's kind of like the fantasy of like what would happen, how would we live, even though it's essentially a survival situation. But like, would people devolve into bestial tribes? Would we be able to maintain our humanity and our civility? But the answer is no. But Fallout New Vegas is amazing. It takes place after like a fictional nuclear war has taken place, and society has slowly started to build it up itself out of the ashes. And New Vegas is where the Las Vegas Strip used to be. But it's also it's because it's a fictional past. It's like a fictional kind of 1940s style society. It looks like kind of how the height of Vegas life, with like the Rat Pack and everything would have looked back then. And you're a courier who gets wrapped up in the events of all these different factions trying to vie for power within the wider New Vegas Mojave Desert area. And I like it because I grew up in the Mojave Desert, and I like the idea. I feel like I have a personal connection to it. But there's so many awesome stories to get caught up in, and there's a couple of different endings. As far as I know, it's got to be like 4 or 5 different endings, depending on who your character decides to align themselves with. And the whole game it's all desert. There's even some DLC where you get to go to a different part, and it looks like Utah. It has to do with kind of these Mormon style factions that are at war with one another in a different part of the game. But yeah, I'm instantly at home. I definitely am not a big fan of the giant scorpions that are in the game, or the giant ants, or the giant death claws, which are these huge beasts, like scaly monsters that attack you. But Fallout New Vegas in the pantheon of Fallout games, it's probably my favorite. I had such a good time playing it. I got kind of hung up. I started trying to mod it, trying to add in mods because it would occasionally crash and freeze. So I didn't get very far in that adventure, and so I haven't played it since then. It's kind of just sitting half in, half out, half modded, half not, and I just got to figure it out. But Fallout New Vegas, if you love open world games and you'd like a good classic, which very well written stories, guys, very cool, compelling stories, compelling characters. I can't recommend it highly enough, and it takes place in the Mojave Desert. So.
Nice, man. Well, that's a good one. It's a good way to start us off. For me, I want to talk about, I know you're not the biggest fan of this movie, but I think it does a good job of like highlighting the desert and just showing what like conditions are and life is, especially on like a fob in the desert. But Jarhead with Jake Gyllenhaal during the Gulf War.
Yep.
Like, also, I mean, the Marine Corps, everybody knows, like, we love our devil dogs because they are so mentally tough. But especially back in the day, like in the Army, we didn't have that much equipment. But man, the Marines, they were treated like crap. And they weren't given anything. And, they had to be ready to fight chemical threats at any moment in the desert, because the Gulf War with these chemical weapons threats was, extremely heightened. But the entire sequence when they're just waiting to go to the war and they're all telling them like, we're ready to go. They're just sitting in Kuwait, like just roasting in the heat. And like, I've never been to Kuwait because it's not a deployment and I pride myself on only deploying to combat. But, so many people go to Kuwait and, like, the stories that come out of that place is, during the summer, we're talking 120, 130 degrees easy. Crazy. Where you can, your belt, the rubber on your boots is literally, melting on the concrete. The type of heat that you can fry an egg on the sidewalk is what we're talking about. And, that's what the desert emulates, is just the heat. And I'm not a big fan of heat. I in basic training, I actually was a heat casualty in Georgia.
Oh, really?
And all my training was like, when I went through Ranger selection, I went through in January. When I went to Ranger school, I left in November, graduated in March. So I was there. All my hard shit, that's why I prefer the cold, because I'm like, I like the cold because I know I can do the cold. But the heat is just a different animal. It takes all the energy and just sucks it out of you. And, if you're not drinking water, you're good as dead. But Jarhead's a great representation of like the life in the desert, because at all times they have to be ready to literally put on gas masks and do their job, regardless of how hot it is outside. And I think it's even closer to, speaking of Marine Corps during that like era, Generation Kill is like an awesome example as well, where they, operating in gas mask. If you haven't, if you're not in the military and you don't really have an idea of like what CBRN is, it's like the chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear preparations we make. So, being in the gas mask with the full mop suit and just, that stuff is miserable. And I can only imagine it gets, 10 times, 100 times worse when it's super hot. Because even doing that stuff, I did it in Arizona one time, and like Arizona is notorious for just being super hot. Yeah, and like it was training, and I was like, this is not the move, man. This is like, I was like cutting holes in my suit to pee out of, and like sometimes to breathe, I was just lifting up my gas mask slightly, which is like a no-go. But to be in the desert and to be in chemical gear is like my worst nightmare.
So non-permeable, man. It's like heavy. You're just sweating your balls off, man.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, CBRN gear is not fun, and it's even more not fun when you're in the desert. But yeah, I'm like you, dude. I have a lot of respect for the desert environment just because it's all I know. It's all I've trained in. It's basically Syria was desert, Iraq is desert. Afghanistan is pretty mountainous, but they also have desert components because they're all pretty close to each other. But yeah, the desert's an animal, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it is. I'm thinking about what the desert can represent, because I feel like in Jarhead, and then there's another game on the list called Spec Ops: The Line, where the desert can also, we use environments. There's a reason why we put certain pop culture, movies, TV shows, video games in certain environments, because they want to communicate something, or they could communicate something. I'm not saying they are, but like Spec Ops: The Line is basically a descent into madness, and the idea of being...
you can go mad in the desert. Oh, yeah.
Like it's desolate. I mean, it really is the water, the idea of, dying of thirst has got to be like one of the worst slow ways to go, because we need water, and then eventually your body is just like eating itself, trying to take up that moisture. And the amount of endurance that it takes to survive, like in something like a Bravo 2-0 type situation, where you got to trek miles and miles and miles and miles. And, you and I did that Bataan Memorial March. It's on our YouTube, folks. You guys can check out the PCFM YouTube. It's on there. You can check it out. But, just after a while, after like 15 miles, your feet are hamburger, your joints are hurting, your muscles are hurting and stuff. You got to keep hydrating and keep snacking, even though you don't feel like it. That's what the desert can do, like in pop culture. It could just represent like hopelessness, and desolation and the fall, of like descending into madness, or the fall of society, like in Fallout New Vegas. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. You hear of stories of survival out in the desert. And it's crazy, man. I guess it would kind of be a little bit close to something like a maritime survival situation, because if you're out in the ocean, it's still equally as desolate. Like there's a lot more there's a lot more life around you. Obviously, there's the sea creatures, and you know, if you're smart, you can go shopping. You can go fishing.
You can go shopping.
You can go shopping for
shopping.
fish. But you know, you can't drink the water, man. You got to catch like rainwater.
Could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine being surrounded by so much water and just so thirsty and knowing you can't drink it? That's like, you know, that's torture.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But yeah, I have deep respect for, like, you ever heard of the Bedouin?
Yeah, they're like the desert people out in Iraq.
Yeah, they're like the dead.
Like
yeah, they're like the wanderers, like the nomads of the desert.
Yeah.
They just wander the Arabian desert, and like those dudes are barebone. They just go on camels and like just live out there. So it's like I have no idea how those dudes do it, but that's their home and they figured it out. So good on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think that's good for the desert, man. Let's move over to a place that is only ingrained in my nightmares: the jungle.
Yep.
The jungle, man. I hate the jungle. Not recently, one of these movies, Tears of the Sun, I think does an excellent job of showing the jungle. Plus any Vietnam movie, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, Tears of the Sun, we watched it with our patrons not too long, actually like a couple months back, like 2 or 3 months back, and it was a good time. But that movie, I think, does an excellent job of just showing the harshness of the jungles. And it's in the details for me. Yeah. Because, like, I mean, the whole purpose of the movie is, like, they're running away from, like, this, you know, rebel army that's trying to kill ethnic cleansing of all the Christians in, you know, this African nation. But you can, just by looking at, like, the operators and the people, they are constantly sweating. Mm-hmm. Like, they are never not just leaking sweat. Yep. And that detail right there, I was like, that just, you know, I wish you could like feel, you know, physical feelings in movies. And that would be like, you know, 4D immersion, where like the theater is just 100 degrees and they keep putting in, you know, humidifiers, yoga, and you're just sitting there and you're like, I just want to get naked, but you know, you can't.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I feel like I'm thinking about that 4D immersion. Nobody would go see that movie because, like, no.
Yeah, no, not at all. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, all of the animals, everything there's almost no safety. I'd love to meet somebody who is a survival expert who specializes in the jungle, because I just can't see it. You know, I don't know how cool it gets in the so-called wintertime. I'm imagining it's just going to rain all the time in that case.
Yeah, there is no winter. There's just rainy season.
Yeah, just rainy. Yeah, rainy and then hot and humid season. So like
there's dry season and rainy season. That's like summer and winter in the jungle.
Pretty much. And my hat's off to all the, you know, the Vietnam generation especially, who has had, it's one thing to survive in the jungle, it's another thing to fight a war in the jungle, especially against the people that's where they're from. That's like their home turf, so they know it a little bit better than you do. But man, oh man, just like your feet, just like trying to take care of your feet to keep them dry, trying to avoid getting trench foot or whatever.
And it's so easy.
Poisonous spiders. It's the spiders especially. I'm thinking like spiders and frogs, and man, it's just crazy, man.
Yeah, it's like you go to this environment, especially, you know, for example, like Vietnam. You go thinking that like your biggest threat is the Viet Cong, which it's a huge threat, but just you also don't want to be the guy that literally gets medevaced because, you know, his feet are falling apart, or he got, you know, a ruthless rash all over his body because he, you know, didn't clear his area where he was sleeping, or like you were just brutally eaten by ants on the ground. Like the jungle's merciless, man. It sucks, and there is no way around it. It's just like you have to do the job regardless. Like all these Vietnam movies, so like Platoon, you know, that scene when they're Charlie Sheen is new to the platoon and he's like on watch for the Claymore, and they're just lying in, you know, this platoon or this patrol base that is just, you know, surrounded by plants. Like you don't have the opportunity to like hack stuff down. Like you just sleep where you are, And I'm pretty sure it's raining in that scene too. So like all you have is this poncho and you just want to kill yourself. And on top of that, you're being hunted by another person.
Right.
So it's like, dude,
the idea,
Platoon does an excellent job.
Yeah.
And then Hamburger Hill too. Like when it gets muddy and you have to take this hill, like you're literally trying to take this hill, but dudes are just sliding down the mud because it's rainy season.
Yeah.
Like the jungle's the absolute worst place. That's, I'm hard. I'm hard. I'm not hard, people, but like I'm definitely stuck. You can't change my mind. Jungle and swamp, they're like one and the same to me, but they're the worst place.
Have you ever been to Hawaii, though?
Oh yeah, I've been to Hawaii. Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful if you don't have to. If you know you don't have to stay out in it, it's wonderful.
Yeah, if you're vacationing, it's wonderful to go to the
you
jungle.
know? It's
just the difference is operating in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you can't leave. Do you have a favorite from the list that we have on here? The jungle from the jungle list.
Ooh, for the jungle. I mean, Tears of the Sun is a really good one. It's hard to choose because like Apocalypse Now is on there.
Yep.
And like not only do you have to worry about the jungle, but you have to worry about everybody losing their mind, and then you have to navigate the riverways too, which provide a lot of ample high speeds avenue of approach for the enemy to ambush you.
Yep.
You're just like sitting duck. So like, dude, I can't choose. I mean, obviously, I also have Predator on this list because that also is, they're in the jungle in that one.
Yep.
And it sucks,
Did you ever see Apocalypto?
Yes, I've seen Apocalypto.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great example. Is everything in the jungle can kill you.
Yeah.
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Anthem Blue Cross and Common Threads are helping schools across the country learn about healthier food preparation. And here in LA, they're joined by the Sparks and will provide education, recipes, and knowledge to students and families about healthier options. Learn more at anthem.com/ca/sparks. Anthem Blue Cross is the trade name of Blue Cross of California.
Yeah, we get that. Was it the puma that attacks?
Yeah, the
them out of
puma.
nowhere?
Oh my god, the wildlife in the jungle. Everything can kill you in the jungle. It's I could sit here and basically just rant about how the jungle is the worst place ever, but we still have 5 more environments to cover. Okay. So if you're cool with the jungle, man, you want to move on?
Let's move on.
Let's talk about mountains, dude.
Oh man, mountains are beautiful, man. One of the best things about being stationed at Fort Lewis was that it's in the Pacific Northwest, and I had a good
Mount
buddy
Rainier.
At the time. Yep. I had a good buddy at the time.
Did you ever climb Mount Rainier?
Went up halfway. Yeah, we took a day.
Halfway.
That buddy I was talking about, another buddy of mine named Chris. The three of us went up, and we took a whole day to get up to that base camp there. And it was really cool. Boy, that was the first time you really feel the altitude, right? Because I was a strapping young lad. I was 26, 27. I was 27 at the time, and I'm in the prime of my youthful endurance, and that last kind of mile and a half or whatever up to that base camp, you just can't, there's no air. You just don't have it, you feel fine. You just can't, it's like you just feel fatigued.
Can't process it.
Yeah. It's so
I mean, when you're mountaineering, altitude sickness is like a big concern because if you would have just kept going to the surface, it's possible. But if you're not seasoned, there is a huge chance that you can get altitude sickness, and it is literally the worst. Like it'll drop you. So actually, when you stopped at the base camp there, you're supposed to stay there for like a couple hours to acclimate to the altitude, and then finish your summit.
Wow.
Because it's the altitude sickness is no freaking joke.
Did you ever summit?
For me, no, man. It was my biggest regret. I was supposed to be a rope team leader for like regiment does it every year as like a team building thing. And the weather was so bad up there. And I was like, well, for my first time, I don't want to freaking die, especially since I haven't done any mountaineering except for ranger school. So I was like, we're not going to do it. Some dudes did it, but they said it was miserable, but I was like, I'm not going to freaking do that. But it was honestly one of my biggest regrets. And one of my plans is to go back and summit it with some old ranger buddies of mine. That's one of the things I need to do before I kick the bucket here. So, nice. But, some some movies here on mountains, dude. I mean, when you think mountains, like a lot of people assume snow, but they don't necessarily need to be snowy.
Right.
Like the mountains of Afghanistan, obviously were, they weren't covered in snow during the summer times. They got snowy during the winter because Afghanistan gets very cold in the winter. But like Lone Survivor is just like, I think, that scene when they're fighting for their lives and just literally falling off cliffs, I think is the best representation of mountain warfare.
Yeah.
It's relentless. And like not only are you worrying about like the enemy, and this is the same with the jungle, but like the environment is so hazardous. Like one wrong step and you can die.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're falling down. There's so many, not so many stories, but there's two in particular. At the Outpost and Restrepo are two where you hear about these stories and you hear about where they were at, and you just don't know why any officer or any person would want to have a base in the middle of this valley, like where they're literally surrounded on all sides by mountains, by giant hills, where everybody has the height advantage. Everybody has the high ground, like they say. Afghanistan, such a great example of the mountains being almost like another character in the movie, where you get over that hill, you get up to the crest of the mountain, and there's just more mountains beyond. Yeah,
it's just mountains as far as the eye can see. There's a good documentary. There's two actually I have on this list that I just want to mention really quickly. The Hornet's Nest from 2013. It's basically a freelance reporter and his son join military units in Afghanistan, I believe, and like they just show the combat footage, and they get it all on camera. And there's one scene where they're literally like on this mountain road, and they just start taking contact, and like they get separate. The father and son get separated, and they're just on this slope of a mountain, like taking rounds above their head. And it's like, and it's all, it's all captured on film, and it's a crazy good documentary if you really want like a sense of combat in general, because you have these guys that are just, with seasoned fighters, and they're actually getting into fights, and it's all documented. So the Hornet's Nest is really good. And then I need to see this one. I found it. I had no idea it existed, but it's called The Last Ridge, the 10th Mountain Division. It was a documentary on the 10th Mountain Division. And it came out in 2007, but I'm pretty sure it showed them during World War II about how they would pretty much got their name, the 10th Mountain, because they were operating in the mountains, getting the jump on the Germans because they were scaling cliffs that the Germans thought were impossible for anybody to do. Wow. So I grazed through it, and there's just some amazing shots in that documentary of like soldiers literally scaling cliffs with full combat gear, just trying to get in better positions.
From like World War II.
Yeah, in World War II. Yeah. Like I've done some military mountaineering before, and it's scary. Dude, it is so scary. Like, there's a difference between just like hitting switchbacks up and just, working your way up a mountain, walking. But when you actually need to climb, that is, an experience that'll live with me forever, because it is truly terrifying. And it blows my mind that, the lead climber in the group has to set the anchors for the rest of the group. Yeah. So he has to climb free solo. Yeah. And get everything. And like that, watching dudes that are like super proficient on climbing, it just blows your mind.
They're like free solo, like that documentary.
Yeah, they're literally free soloing it. And like you follow behind them and climb with all your gear, but you're using the anchors and you're attached to the rope. But like at some points, like if I didn't have this rope, I would be falling off this mountain. And you're literally trusting that these anchors hold while you're just like on a vertical cliff. So I have so much respect for lead climber. The military completely ruined mountain climbing for me, but I'm sure like one day I'll get back into it when I'm like rested, I'm well fed, and like I'm with friends, having a good time. But mountaineering is, I have so much respect for it, and it's terrifying, and that's why I love it so much, because it really like pushes me. It takes me completely out of the comfort zone, because every time I do it, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking die.
I'll tell you what, that's no joke, man. I mean, I'll stick with my safe hobby of skydiving at this point, man.
Yeah, right. You have a better chance of living on in the air than you do on the mountains.
Yeah.
But
well, we got a couple more left, man. Urban is next on our list. Urban environments. It's really crazy, man, because I mean, now I feel like it's old hat for us. Like fighting in urban environments, we've been doing it for the past, 20 years, 20 plus years. But it really, I think our tactics have, I think, evolved so much, even in that 20-year time, because we've had so many experiences. We've just been fighting in cities for, a long time and
decades.
Decades. And you see it in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, man. These blasted cities and people are running through the rubble. And it looks kind of like World War II, like these old bombed out German cities, only it's like happening in real time over in the Ukraine. It's crazy, man. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously the best representations of urban, I think, in pop culture, number one for me is, obviously Black Hawk Down. Like that, it doesn't get any better than that for like showing, house to house. And then, thinking about historical events, Fallujah, going literally door to door with the Marines and the Army. And that's, like you said, we learned from everything we've done. So I think Fallujah was like, kind of igniting the spark to figure out like, obviously this is a dangerous job, but how do we make it, how do we mitigate risk here while doing one of the most dangerous things we can do, which is close quarter battle. Yeah. So, Black Hawk Down, happened in fucking 93.
Yep.
So, back, when tactics weren't full, but it was still scary as hell and these guys did it. But like moving to newer pop culture with like the SEAL Team TV series.
Yeah.
And I actually really like it because like even the first couple of episodes, they're like clearing, entire complexes in the TV series, and they're doing it well and they're doing it efficiently.
Yep.
So I'm glad they have really good military advisors on that show because they kill it with the urban combat in SEAL Team.
Yeah, it makes me wonder now that now that we're in a major way, obviously we're out of Afghanistan and we're not really doing a whole lot in Iraq as far as I know. But there's not like a major conflict going on. I wonder in pop culture how that will be represented. Like I think it's gotten a lot better representation for the most part of how tactics are done. But I wonder if it'll kind of stay there for a little while. We'll have like a generation of movies, and then, I don't know, God forbid we get to another kind of major war, urban warfare kind of situation, if they will continue to evolve, or if now the advisors over the next couple of years will start to come they'll come from the veteran community, or maybe more law enforcement. That'll continue to evolve. Like, who are the instructors going to be for the upcoming, what I'm sure will be upcoming, pop culture movies about the military. There's already a bunch, man. They got The Covenant. I'm thinking of Afghanistan specifically. Start going back to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The Covenant. You got that Gerard Butler one, Kandahar or something like that. And
where he's like a CIA guy or something.
Yeah, they're already starting to make the whole Afghanistan generation movies, kind of like how we did with like Vietnam or even I guess we don't make too many about Iraq. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how the tactics evolve in terms of urban combat, close quarters combat. For
sure,
movies.
And I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be I always think like they've made all the movies they can make. So what's next? And it's just like, well, our history events, like our history fuels what we're going to be making like cinema over and TV shows on. So like, as long as we keep fucking up, we're gonna, we're gonna have more and more movies than ever. It's great.
We gotta make pop culture. Let's go get involved in Ukraine. We got to make some.
Yeah,
movies
let's do. We gotta make some movies about this. Yeah, but let's talk about some movies made in the maritime environment. We got 2 settings left, but yeah, maritime, not fun. I think I recently watched this finally, and I think Captain Phillips is like an awesome maritime.
Had you not seen that before? You watched it?
I had not seen it. Yeah, I had not seen it until like a couple weeks ago. It's so good.
So good.
It's so good. And like, seeing from like, it gives you the military perspective of maritime, and it gives you the civilian, working on these cargo ships and freight liners. Like, being at sea is not like there's no comforts. It's not like these guys are getting on a, Carnival cruise line and, having all the food they can eat. Like, it's literally, you are on like a mobile military base and you're just, stuck at sea, just trying not to get sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, Captain Phillips was really good. I loved the scene the final scene where Dev Gru comes on, or SEAL Team 6, and they're sitting on the back of the destroyer with the lights on them so they can't see them positioned. and they just take all three of those shots simultaneously finally when they can see them. Because, you got to it wasn't that far of a shot, but you have to consider, like, you have one boat moving, and then you have another boat moving. So there's just, like, there's no pattern to where you can be like, okay, like, it's going up and down and up and down and up and down. Okay, now I take the shot. Like, there was no pattern that they could guess. It was just, like, a millisecond of a decision-making process that pulled the trigger.
The coordination.
It was an amazing movie.
It's crazy, man,
Yeah.
I love...
And speaking of Tom Hanks,
I was gonna
Saving
say,
Private Ryan.
I was going to say Greyhound.
Oh, Greyhound, yeah. I mean, this guy's... Tom Hanks is like the maritime man, apparently.
He's an American
treasure.
treasure.
Yeah, go for American treasure. I love him.
Greyhound, it's based on a true story, too. This captain who, in World War II, is basically in charge of keeping safe a supply flotilla or a bunch of supply ships that are heading from America to England to support the war effort for the Allies. And I think he's the only battleship in the fleet. They've got a couple of little smaller ships that are kind of helping for security, but he's the main dude. And it's just like this marathon sprint. It's, to across the Atlantic. They got the German U-boats that are hounding them. The Wolf, they're constantly mocking him over the PA, the radio.
Yeah.
And just I love it when they keep a movie like Greyhound, except for the extra scenes, which I'm sure they probably shot later with his wife or the girl that he's interested in marrying, kind of the flashback scenes. I love it when they keep a movie in the same place for the whole movie. Like, it really gives the sense of endurance and kind of the grind, and you're getting more and more fatigued, and it's this long slog because the action may let up at any given time, but you're still there. You're with the characters the entire time, and they could do a good job of showing everyone's fatigue and showing his fatigue and how he's on his feet. They even make it a point throughout the movie of showing that he almost gets a meal, he almost gets a chance to eat, but then something happens, or he almost gets to take a break, but then something happens. And they just do that throughout the entire film to really communicate what kind of a stressful journey it must have been going from America to England, trying to protect all of these ships. And you're just like, it's like running back and forth in the house, trying to put all the fires out. This guy's in trouble, that guy's in trouble. You got to go back and forth. Greyhound's great. If you haven't seen it, guys, I totally recommend it.
And then obviously you guys have heard us talk about Saving Private Ryan numerous scenes. The beginning, maritime assault, the biggest, seaborne operation in history. Yeah. They do an amazing job of showing that. And then I just wanted to mention, when things go wrong in maritime, you have moments like the USS Indianapolis where you are just at sea, surviving at sea. And not to mention, I mean, I'm so mad that USS Indianapolis Men of Courage, that movie that Nick Cage is in.
One?
Yeah, because the scenes where they're in the water just getting decimated by sharks is terrifying. But it's a terrible movie. But I wish they just did a much better representation of this event, because that to me is one of the most terrifying things that could happen to you.
Yeah.
It's just literally waiting and not knowing whether you're going to be the next shark attack. Painfully dying at sea next to your buddies.
Yeah, man.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
It's one of the reasons I don't love the oceans, because you don't know at any moment something could happen. You don't know if something's swimming up,
and you're not in control.
Coming at you. There's so many things that are outside your control. We talk about in a survival situation, the will to live is the number one tool you have to survive. It's the will to survive. Never losing that will to survive. Obviously, you need that if you're stranded in the ocean, but after a while, you just can't stay afloat. It doesn't matter how much you want to live, unless you got some sort of flotation device. And even then, after a while, dehydration, fatigue, the sun, maybe
hunger,
if you're in there for days.
The sun.
Dude, in Unbroken, where they're at sea for 42 days, and they gotta stay alive.
My God.
And they gotta keep on out from under the sun. They gotta collect rainwater. They gotta try to fight for fish, literally. And then that one dude, he just gives up. He just doesn't have the will to live. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, maritime sucks.
Yeah, maritime sucks.
But moving, that place sucks.
The only thing that sucks worse, I think, maybe than maritime. I don't know. It depends on if you like it or not.
I don't think it sucks at all because the absence of gravity. There is no sucking.
There's no
right?
sucking. Yeah, unless it's like explosive decompression or something. But space.
Yeah,
man.
Space, man.
The most
space is
inhospitable
scary.
environment because there's literally no atmosphere. We have to take everything with us: water, food, heat, oxygen.
There's no surviving in space. You can't just like float at space and be like, okay, I think maybe if I do this, I'll be okay. No, you just die.
Yeah,
there is no winning.
There's no will to survive. If you're just floating out there and you have no propulsion or whatever, you're dead. You're just gonna die.
I had such a trippy thought the other day. I was literally driving and it was a full moon and I was like looking at the moon and I was like, I wasn't high at all. It was just me being me. And I was like, that fucking moon is so far away.
What's like 3 million miles away or something like that?
It's so far away. And then of course my freaking brainiac fiance Sydney was just like, yeah, shooting stars, it's actually like 4,000 years to get to us. So like it actually fell like, 4 light years away or like 4,000 light years away or something, to where it like took that, like it took 4 years after that happened to reach us. That's how far it is away. Oh, no, she said 4 light years. So like apparently in 2018 there was like this big one of the biggest shooting stars in like recorded history, which was a big deal, but it literally took 4 years from when it happened for us to see it, because that's how far away it was.
Yeah, it's like light from stars traveling. It's like the light that we're seeing from that star probably burned out like thousands of years ago. We're just
thousands of years ago. And we're just seeing it now.
Yeah.
Like that's how far it is. That's how big space is.
Yeah.
So if you think you're surviving in space, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah. That's why I love. Yeah. I mean, I love The Martian is one of those ones. Gravity and The Martian are two. When I think about survival in space, those are the ones that at least they give it a good go of like really trying to think out what it would be like to survive in space, especially if you're Matt Damon,
especially if you're Matt Damon.
But The Martian's great, and obviously, like it's like a case study in just like using the word science a lot because he has to science everything. But,
it's to science everything. Yeah, good thing he's good at science because it's time to science.
He's got to science the heck out of this thing, man. Yeah. But then we've got like things like Apollo 13, which was a real situation, which makes it even more unbelievable because they actually made it back after this catastrophic accident during the Apollo 13 mission. So well done, Ron Howard. What do you got? Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, and was it Kevin Bacon?
I think Kevin Bacon's in it.
Kevin Bacon. What great cast, great movie, and true story, man. How it's so funny because in the movie they make it a point of like nobody was like interested anymore. They weren't getting like their news interviews and stuff. It had already been done. They'd done it 12 times before to a certain degree, and then all of a sudden when things go bad, the world is united. They want them to come back. It was this amazing event. It was crazy.
That is crazy, man. Space. I don't even get it. I don't even know what the Space Force does.
I mean, isn't the Space Force just mostly like monitoring, monitoring satellites and trying to... I mean, it's legit. I think it's legitimate because...
It's legit.
Satellites and electronic warfare and air superiority even out into that, that degree. It's not like we need like fighter jets out there, but like there are satellites going overhead. Guarantee you China's spying on us.
Oh, they got satellites.
I mean, so they got balloons,
Yeah, they got balloons and stuff. Yeah, terrifying. This is according to spaceforce.mil. Question, what is the mission of the U.S. Space Force? Answer, the U.S. Space Force is a military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect U.S. and allied interests in space and provide space capabilities to joint forces. So I'm assuming it's like, satellite warfare.
Yeah.
Like obviously you have like Transformer freaking coming in and embedding itself into the satellite, and they're like, nope, we're gonna send like a laser at you, and that's I'm assuming what they do.
Yeah,
but
I think right now, and who knows? I mean, if we survive, if the Earth and humanity survives that long, there could actually legitimately be like space troopers where they have to train
space
them how
rangers
to fight in space. which is basically just crack the other guy's face shield. But
yeah.
But yeah,
I wonder what kind of weapons they would use, because you can't, obviously shoot standard. I don't think you can shoot standard
like
guns
push
in
yourself
space.
back. If like combustion, it would like push.
Yeah,
you
if you like
back,
shot it and it would shoot you back. Yeah,
I mean,
it would have to be like reverse
you have
recoil.
to be riveted down or like secured down. Your person would have to be secured in order to fire. But like maybe like I don't
Maybe
know,
it'll be a good
laser,
content
like heat
video.
Weapons or like I don't know.
Yeah, lasers,
Fire,
freaking laser beams. I don't know. We got to think about it. Maybe we can go to space and shoot a video of how to shoot a gun in space and if it works.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we've covered all of these environments. Yeah, we got space, maritime, urban, mountain, Arctic, the jungle, and the desert.
Yeah.
I think we're good, unless we didn't miss anything. If we missed something.
Yeah, we firmly established that we would die in all of these environments,
Yeah. But if we missed something, hey, send us an email to the PCFMpodcast at gmail.com or shoot us a message on Instagram at PCFMpodcast. But, we've been going for a good amount of time here. Let's do our fan question and then take it out with a game. What do you say, buddy?
Let's do it, man. This one is from James T via Instagram. It says, "Hey, dudes, I love tuning into the podcast, especially from my car." Haha, very good man.
Ha, 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 ha.
Ha, ha, ha. Questions for you both. Did you have any fears while serving or that are still relevant today? I mean, I've always been afraid.
I think we kind of covered it.
I've always been afraid of spiders. I hate spiders. I'm not a fan of spiders. I can kill a spider. I'm not like going to run away like maybe the wife might do. But I can take on a spider. But like, I had that brief encounter with the camel spider. What I am in Iraq, what I am now today is, I guess maybe I'm a little more grounded. And if I see a spider, I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to assess the situation and then I'll kill it,
Yeah,
but
that makes total sense.
But I used to have trying to think of like I still get a little queasy like standing on the edge of high things, but obviously
that's scary.
I love skydiving. That's fun, but I wouldn't want to be on the side of a mountain,
Yeah, heights are scary. I always get that feeling of like unstable and like if I fall, that's it on like really high stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, I think what you said in the beginning of the podcast about like the fear of the unknown. Like, for me, that's water. Like, being in open water, I don't like that. Even in swimming pools, if I'm in the deep end, like, just treading water, I still get, like, this weird, like, thing inside me that's, like, anything can come up. Anything can, come up and drag you down, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. And I'm like, yeah. But, yeah, that's just, I think, growing up watching, like, Jaws and all those shark movies and all that. That's definitely what engraved me. But, yeah, water. And I'm slowly trying to get over that, just because that's, just got to trooper on. Yeah, you got to trooper on, troop on, troop. Man. Yeah, conquer those fears. But yeah, water for me is still like kind of weird. I feel very uneasy in the ocean, but I'm working on it daily. Yep. But I think we hope we answered your question, James.
Yeah. Thanks, James. All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Game time, baby. I don't see anything.
Game time.
Is that you?
You don't see it because I am the game master once again, and you just love playing.
Playing.
I think so. That's why Chris gives me all the games. But this is going to be a delightful game, a sort of geography or astronomy trivia game, but it's all fictional places. Huh. I'll ask you a question, give you multiple choices, and you tell me the answer. Nice and simple game for my nice and simple friend.
I am a simple man with simple needs.
Yes, with simple needs. Okay, it just goes straight into it, so let's just go, huh?
All right, let's do it, man.
All right. First one. What ocean world is home to the facility where the clone army in Star Wars is created? Is it A, Calabria? Is it B, Camino? Is it C, Coruscant? Or D, Casino?
Casino. It's Camino. It's the hidden planet of Camino.
Well, I really wish Chris would have gave me an answer key.
It's definitely Camino. That one
okay.
Yeah. That one
it's Camino.
Unless you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's definitely Camino.
Okay. Well, yeah, Chris didn't give me.
He just gave you the 4 answers, and hopefully I'll just.
Yeah, no,
right.
He didn't even give me any answers at all. Well, that's fantastic.
That's great. Well, I'm just going to assume I'm going to be right from now on. Then.
I guess so. I know the next one, but you tell me. What is the name of the mountainous capital of Gondor? Is it Osgiliath? Is it Minas Morgul? Is it Minas Tirith? Is it Dul Amroth?
Oh, it's Minas Tirith. City of
okay,
Minas Tirith.
that is correct. Well, let's see if you get this. Maybe you just know all the answers, and Chris leaves me hanging.
Is
here.
Osgiliath, is that the little city by the river there that gets taken over? What's Osgiliath?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Osgiliath is like that river city where they Sam and Frodo get taken to originally, and then they escape from.
By the way, I saw you on your stream the other day playing Shadow of Mordor.
I was playing Shadow of Mordor. How
is that? Had you played that before?
No, I only played it because you told me about it.
So, do you like it?
Yeah, I like it so far. It's pretty cool.
It's cool.
It's hard. It's hard.
Beating that guy's butt.
Yeah, thanks, man. I stay beating butts. Oh, you saw that scene where I'm just like ramming that dude's butthole?
Somebody clipped it, yeah.
Just beating butts. Yeah. Okay, next one. What is a swampy town in Red Dead Redemption 2 that is based on New Orleans?
Oh.
Is it Saint Denis? Is it Annesburg? Is it Blackwater? Or is it Tumbleweed?
Oh, I remember because there's a lady, you go to the theater show, and she sings a song about Saint Denis. We're going down to Saint Denis. Saint Denis, basically. Saint Denis.
I'm going to assume you're correct.
It's definitely. I remember the song very distinctly.
Okay, well, I'm assuming you are right. All right, next one. What is the name of the desert planet in Dune? Is it Arkham? Arrakis?
Arrakis. I'm way ahead of you there. Not even going to...
Okay, I'm just going to give it to you then. This is not a fun game. Come on, Chris.
Dune, desert planet.
Yes, okay. In what coastal city is the Starfleet Academy? London, New York, San Francisco, Buenos Aires.
That would be San Francisco. They always do a good shot. They always have that panning shot or that wide shot of Starfleet Academy, and then the red the Golden Gate Bridge. They say the Red Dead Bridge.
That is correct, my friend. Okay. I'm putting all these into Google, so hopefully they...
You're finding the answers right now.
Yeah. I got you. Don't worry, buddy. Okay. Next one. What movie would you be in if you found yourself on windswept planet of Fiorna 16?
Oh, wow.
Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Chronicles of Riddick, or Alien?
What's that? What's the planet called again?
Fiorna 16.
The windswept planets of Fiorna 16. Just because I'm wondering, I'm going to say Chronicles of Riddick.
Or, so you had Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Chronicles of Riddick, or Alien 3.
Oh, it's not Alien because that's LV-426. Search for Spock. Why don't we say the Search for Spock? Because it could be the temporary planet that was made out of the Genesis device.
Well, I really hope you would have stuck with your gut because it is Alien here.
It is Alien?
It is Alien, yes. It is all over every single Alien Reddit, and it's on Xenopedia fandom.
What? All right, well, I thought it was LV-426.
I'm sure that's one. I think this is Alien 3.
Oh, that's the prison planet she goes to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one that they crash on and all my favorite characters die. Oh, well.
Yes. Okay, bonus extra hard, no multiple choice question. In The Princess Bride, there are two specifically mentioned environments they travel through. What are their names? Hint, it's not Gilder or Florin.
Cliffs of Insanity and the Fire Swamp.
Wow, you were so good. That is correct. Yeah. Guess somebody is somebody's a Princess Bride fan. Great movie.
The Cliffs of Insanity, and then the Fire
Cliffs
Swamp.
of Insanity.
We could be happy there for quite some time.
Well, damn, Chris. Thanks for not doing the answers. I'm sure Izzy crushed it except for the Alien one.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did really well. You knew a lot of those, so I'm going to give it to you.
All right.
But I call BS on this game, Chris. BS, I call.
We're going to get an angry text from him as he's editing this episode together.
I know he is. He's going to be like, what the hell, man? It's right there. Unless it's like on a completely different page, which is not, then I'm okay. But folks, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing our commentary on why the jungle sucks and all the other environments. But We hope you had fun. And Izzy, unless you got anything else?
As always, folks, please join us on our Patreon. That's where you get full episodes, extra episodes, and a monthly live stream with me and Cameron. We love hanging out with our community there. We appreciate all our patrons. Folks, stay cool until the next time we see you. And with that,
cue music.
what's going on, everybody? You just listened to the free version of the PCFM podcast. If you want full-length versions of podcast episodes, plus much, much more, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/PCFM podcast.
That is right, Israel. If you want access to this full episode, you have to subscribe to the Fuzzy Private tier, which is our cheapest tier on Patreon at $5 a month. But if you are interested in a little bit more, we also have the Salty Sergeant tier at $8 a month and the Lifer tier at $12 a month. So hopefully we will see you there, PCFM family. Cue music.
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.